Hey, this is Rebecca Dirks with PremierGuitar.com. We're here with Kirk of The Roots, and you're about to show us what you use in live. Now, this is a fly-in date, so it's a little bit stripped down, but why don't you start by telling us what kind of guitars you like to use?
Well, mainly I use Gibsons. I have various Les Pauls that I like to use. I have an old 69 SG custom that I like to use. I use that a lot with John Legend. I have a custom shop 356 that I use from them in red. I use that a lot on the Fallon show, and another Les Paul with P90s that I got custom from them. This is kind of a Jimmy Page sort of model with some of the dings that are that were on Jimmy Page's guitar, and yeah, it's a really comfortable guitar to play and fun, because I'm a Zeppelin fan. And as far as the gear, it's a spot date, so it's rented gear, but it happens to be a good day where an amp that I do like shows up. And this is a Mesa Boogie Lone Star Special, and I used this on the solo for I Can't Write Left-Handed on the John Legend album, the John Legend and the Roots collaboration, Wake Up. And I love it because it's a low wattage amp. It's a 30-watt amplifier, and you can switch between 15 watts and 5 watts, so you can get a really nice sound of an amp that's on the verge of exploding when it's on the 5-watt setting. So I like to use that when recording, and it's very portable. And I like the fact you can get 2 channels, and I find it to be a very warm, three-dimensional sort of amp. And you have reverb on it as well, which is totally not necessary for a situation like this.
That's what we're using here. What do you use kind of for the show and the other things that you do?
For the Fallon show, I use a Mesa Boogie Stiletto combo, which is a EL34 amp. This is the Lone Star Special is a EL84 amp, and I just like the sound of EL34s and 84s. But I like the way that the EL34 sort of cuts through a mix nicely, and I love the mid-range quality that it has, and also just the it's very versatile. I can get a very nice saturated tone. I can get a very bitey, trebly overdrive, sort of marshly overdrive, or I can get like a really fuzzy 60s sort of overdrive from it, and I can get a very lush, clean sound from it as well. So I like those amps.
Right. And you want to show us your pedals here?
It's pretty basic. It's because I like to use the overdrive from the amplifier. Mainly, I have a tube screamer just so I can sort of kick it over the cliff, really, just to get extra saturation and sustain and feedback. I like the tube screamer for that. This is the Durham Electronics Sex Drive, and I like to use that for boost. Also, it's another means to get the amp to work harder and to push the front end of the amp. And also, for clean sort of solos and things like that, I like to use the Sex Drive for that. The Maxon Phase Tone, just a basic phaser sort of based on early MXR Phase 90s sort of thing. I like to use that for like a slow sort of lower setting, like a slow swoosh that's almost barely detectable, but I think it has a really great sound for solos, and sometimes I'll kick it up, fast to get a more of a quick warble. That's the Empress tremolo pedal, and that provides a really lush tremolo effect, and I like the fact it's just very easy to use. I can dial how much. I also like to wear Puma sneakers because of the way that I'm able to dial in the sounds with ease, and you can tap in the tempo you like. Moving to the Line 6, I like that for my delays. I've used these delay pedals for so long, it's almost like another instrument, and I like the programmability with it. I like the fact that I can do looping and sample myself and play over myself if I so choose. And yeah, there's other pedals I love, but when you're traveling the way we do, I'd like to lessen the chances of things going wrong. So I figure I could just keep it to as minimal as possible. And then I have the Dunlop Hendrix Wah. Just sounds good.
Can you talk about any of the ones that you left at home that you like to use normally?
I have an original MXR Phase 45 that I like to use. I also like Divided by 13 gear. I like their amplifiers, and I like their pedals and the way they interact with their amplifiers. But the chances of getting those when traveling is so slim that I don't even take that on the road. But when I'm home, by my lonesome, I like to play with those, and also on other projects like my more rock projects. I like that amp because it's very simple. It's one setting, and I can use the guitar's volume to sort of get the different sounds.
Thanks a lot for showing us what you guys brought for this date and talking about some of your other favorite gear that you weren't able to bring. It's Owen with The Roots, and you're about to show us your bass rig. Let's start with the bass. What do you got here?
This is something my friend Tim in Philadelphia made. It's a Callow Hill OBS that he made special for me, and it's a short scale 6-string bass. So it's 30 inches from the bridge to the nut, and I use flat wound strings on it to kind of get that old EBO-ish Paul McCartney, Hofner.
Do you have multiples of these, or is this just kind of like your main guy?
This is the only one. Yeah.
So do you play other basses with, the Jimmy Fallon show or any other gigs, or?
I do. I have a couple other Callow Hills that Tim made, and one is a sort of a J-style bass. It's a 6-string, and that's sort of a very decidedly modern sound. And the thing I wanted with this was more that vintage, that plump old vintage tonality. And so with this one, to get that, I had him put in a gain circuit. This is actually an old tube screamer that has a bunch of mods, and I use it with the gain on at almost all times. So if I turn that all the way that way, that's the gain up, but I usually play it just as a boost, just to elevate the tone a little bit. Otherwise, it gets a little logy in the big room. Yeah?
And what kind of pickups are in there?
These are Nordstrand, and I'm trying to think of what I think they're Fat Stacks or something like that.
Okay.
They're really great. I love them.
And what do you like about the 6-string bass? Because that's not the most common one that people use, obviously.
It helps me root out people who go for the cheap, like I'm a purist thing, you know? I think it's confrontational, and it helps me sort people out. I like it. Yeah, but it's also fun. There's also musically, you get to kind of expand your range a little. And get some nice voicings and stuff that you wouldn't get otherwise, and the lows for hip-hop.
Cool. And we've got a rented backline here, but it's not too dissimilar from what you use regularly, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I use. Ampeg. This is an SVT, and it's kind of the only thing big enough and loud enough for this kind of gig. But on the Fallon show, I play with their mini. They have a little tiny version of the SVT called the Micro VT, I think, is like this little mini stack that has a tiny head and two 2x10 cabinets that I just have stacked up like a little candy bar behind me. And it has a much smaller footprint on the stage, but pretty much has a similar tone.
Anything else that you kind of rely on to get your sound?
It's just these two. I mean, these two and mono cases, which are indispensable because that's what's gotten me on every flight over the past few years. It's like really the only thing I trust to gate check, and I'd even check it if I had to, but I haven't because this bass is about as small as a guitar. Another advantage of 30-inch scale, and I have my pedal board built in. So I'm a compact traveler.
That's about all you need then. Well, thank you very much for showing us the rig here.
Of course, thank you.
This is Rebecca Dirks for PremierGuitar.com.